Number 10. The Slayer. The armor choice for a Slayer is leather, and the weapon choice for a Slayer is a greatsword. Some of my favorite Slayer skills include the overhand strike. You swing downward for a massive blow, you swing faster if you use it right after one of your other melee attacks. And my other favorite skill from the Slayer includes the End Cold Blood ability. You increase your power and attack speed for a few seconds, which is very good for a dungeon or maneuvering in a boss fight. Why did I put the Slayer so low on this list at number 10? There's two reasons. One, me. I am not a personal fan of one-handed characters in any game. For example, I never liked the Great Weapon Fighter in Neverwinter, and I never will. And number two, there is another class in this list that is much better in terms of damage input and durability, and that class is the Berserker. So that is my small opinion of what I think of the Slayer class. Number 9. Sorcerer. A sorcerer's playstyle includes wielding a disc, having a lot of AoE abilities, and a very good class for crowd control. Essentially, what is crowd control? Crowd control is basically a class controlling a mass amount of mobs and then killing them. This class is very good for holding a lot of mobs' attention of aggro, keeping away from the tank, and when the tank needs to focus on the boss and they're getting attacked by a lot of mobs, this class is very good for controlling mobs. I would even say that this class is on par with Reaper when controlling the mobs. Some of my favorite skills from the Sorcerer includes Meteor Strike. You call down a flaming meteor in a short distance in front of you, taking out a mass amount of mobs. And my other favorite Sorcerer attack has to be Void Pulse. You launch a powerful spear at a single target and it does a lot of damage. So why did I put Sorcerer at number 9? There's only two reasons really why. It's not my playstyle, and it is a little difficult to learn if you're not willing to learn. This type of class is one of those classes that you need to study some of the skills so you can mix and match some of your skill sets to be a very good sorcerer. This type of class requires patience, excessive studying, and getting used to the playstyle. This is not one of the classes you can easily just pick up and play. It requires a lot of your attention and a lot of your time. Number 8. The Berserker. Much like a Slayer, a Berserker is also one-handed as well. The only difference between a Slayer and a Berserker is that the Berserker wields heavier armor, and the weapon that it wields is an axe. Some of my favorite skills from the Berserker has to be Unchained Anger. You sacrifice some of your HP to gain MP. One thing you're going to learn about Berserker is that this is a very dominant MP based class, which seems strange, right? It's not a mage, it's not some priest, but some of their skills requires a lot of MP, and I thank God for the Unchained Anger. Another skill that I can appreciate from Berserker has to be Bloodlust. You temporarily increase your power, balance factor, and impact factor, which can be a game changer in a dungeon. Your Berserker already does enough damage, but you apply Bloodlust, you can even input more damage than you're already doing. Plus, if you have elite status, you can also pop that special potion that gives you more damage, power, HP, and your Berserker is pretty set to go. One more skill that I have to give a shout out to is my favorite PvP skill in the entire game. It's Inescapable Doom. You briefly slow nearby targets, preventing the opposing player from using evasive maneuvers. As you know, the Berserker is pretty slow as is, and this skill, the Inescapable Doom, makes PvP so much power heavy for the Berserker. It's insane. The Berserker already does enough damage, and then you put Escapable Doom on your opponent, it makes them pretty slow, and you can dish out so much damage to the other player. It is by far my favorite PvP skill in this entire game, from any class, anything. It's my favorite PvP skill. I absolutely love this. Now, why did I put Berserker so low on my list at number 8? There's a few reasons why, but there's mainly only one. It is very, very slow. Now, previously I said that the Slayer was my least favorite class in the entire Tera lineup because it was one-handed and I just didn't like the feel of it. I will give the edge on the Berserker for at least giving enough damage to input to make up for being so slow. However, I just don't feel the one-handedness at all. That's not my playstyle, but if it's yours, I would say go for it. But if you are willing to go through such a horrible grind of slow leveling, because the Berserker is pretty slow, then I say go with the Berserker. Number 7, the Warrior. The first attributes of the Warrior is that the leather's armor, which makes it very agile during battle, and it wields twin swords. The one thing about the Warrior is very controversial in the Tera community. Some people argue that this is the best class in the entire Tera lineup, and some people say this is the hardest class to learn. Now, I made a previous top 5 way back last year, and I put the Warrior in my top 5 because I absolutely loved the class. Then I tried it, and to me, and this is my opinion, the Warrior did not seem that hard of a learning curve. I got to level 60, or whatever the level cap was in the open beta. I got to that max pretty decently easily, and it wasn't that hard, right? The one thing about the Warrior though is that you have to know what you're doing. You cannot mess around when you play the Warrior. Much like the Sorcerer, you have to learn the skills. You have to make sure you have the right plugins of skills so you can be a very decent warrior. And leveling up your warrior in like terms of weapons is pretty difficult as well, because you don't know what weapon should you wield. You wield this set of weapons, this set of weapons. It's pretty hard, you know. So this type of class, you're just gonna have a lot of patience, much like the Sorcerer, and will require a lot of your time. So if you already have a warrior or you're planning to get a warrior, just remember to stay patient and learn your curve. Some of my favorite skills from the warrior has to be defensive stance. You increase your endurance and balance factor, and you draw more aggro with the attacks, so you can help out in your dungeon if your lancer or your brawler is in trouble with a lot of ads, and the sorcerer or your other DPS is, you know, it's kind of lacking. You can pick up a little bit of slack with the aggro. And on the flip side, if you don't want to draw too much aggro, I recommend also using assault stance. You increase your power, crit factor, and skill damage at the minor cost of your endurance, allowing you to use reaping slash. So if you want to balance between defense stance and assault stance, depending on the situation, I recommend, you know, alternating between the two. You know, it's one of my favorite 2 skills of the warrior at the moment. So don't be too afraid to try out the warrior, even though some people may tell you not to. Always go with your own judgment at the end of the day. So if you're willing to try out a new character with a whole new feel, I recommend going with this character. Number 6, the Archer. The Archer's armor set is very light, so it's very fluid and agile within a dungeon or an area, and the weapon that it wields is a bow. The Archer is what I'm playing right now on the server Overlift on PS4, and it's by far one of my favorite classes in this entire game. But if it's one of my favorite classes in the entire game, why am I putting it at number 6 rather than something like number 3? Well guys, I told you, my name is Aerdou, and I have to be completely honest with you. I have tried out all 10 characters, and by far, there is something much better than the Archer. But I won't give the Archer too much slack. The Archer by far has one of my favorite skills in the entire game, period, which is Thunderbolt. It's essentially just this amazing one-shot, one-kill type of ability that does so much damage. It's much like a Berserker or much like a Meteor on a Sorcerer. But what is hindering the Archer's growth? Well, I can tell you. The Archer is very expendable when it comes to a DPS. If you don't play your cards right in terms of certain movesets or not dodging in the right time of an extremely powerful AoE attack from a boss, you can die just like that. You know, it's one of those classes. It reminds me of a Trickster Rogue. It's funny because it's an Archer in Neverwinter, but it does remind me of the Archer in Neverwinter. It reminds me of a Trickster Rogue, because I remember a Trickster Rogue in a dungeon in Neverwinter just died just like that if you didn't time or dodge a boss move just like that. And this Archer on Tera reminds me just like that. Now I can tell you from the Archer in Neverwinter, you can barely die on an Archer. You can do pretty much okay, and I believe the distance between an Archer and Neverwinter, you can go way farther than anything on Tera, right? And that's the one thing that I don't like about the Archer, is you can die too quick, but you can change that if you can just learn the movesets and you can dodge things at the right time. You're pretty much set to go. Like I said, some of my favorite moves probably is Rain of Arrows and Thunderbolt. I absolutely love these skills by far. And if you have a really good brawler that knows how to draw aggro and bring them into the middle of the map, whoo, the Archer and the brawler are literally soulmates. You can kill so many enemies with the random arrows or thunderbolts. It is absolutely insane, just wiping the dungeon so clean. If you have made it this far, then A, you are a true fan of Aerdou, or if you're new and you made it this far, you might as well hit that subscribe button, man. You're pretty much in love with me. And number 2, you guys get to hear this message. If this video reaches 300 likes in 24 hours, I will drop part 2 the very next day. You have my word. Get this video to 300 likes. I promise you I will drop part 2, which includes my top 5 classes that are playable right now that a beginner like you, or maybe a refresher for a veteran like you need to hear this. You need to hear my input, and then you should make your own judgment. Thank you guys for watching Aerdou. I'll catch you all in the next video, and as always, peace.